Mine, he whispered in his deep, low, yet dominant voice right in her ear. As he kissed every part of her body, he simply didn't love her. He was extremely possessive about her as well. Only he could love and touch her as he pleased. As Jungkook stood there, he balled his fist as the flashback, no matter how hard he tried to ignore whatever was happening behind his back, he couldn't. She was his wife, his to touch and hold. Before he knew, he was striding back to his wife, her shaky hand extending out to shake Louis's. She could reject it if she was not comfortable, but she was trying only for the sake of his reputation. That alone made him so angry at himself. Jungkook, why? The shock on her face was so visible when he appeared. Jungkook crossed Louis and stepped right in front of Vine, sliding his hand, cupping her jaw. Jungkook, you're shaking. Are you not feeling fine? Shall I take you home? She didn't know if he meant it or he was simply putting on a show to escape Louis, but she liked it. She liked that warm touch against her cheek and his worried eyes on her. Vine, I'm sorry. I think maybe I skipped lunch. Jungkook wrapped his arm around her and turned towards Louis. Jungkook, excuse me. I'm afraid we have to leave. I can't see her like this. Louis, of course. Please, I hope she gets better soon. He said a little awkwardly. It was not necessary at all, but Jungkook slipped his arms around her waist and picked her up in his arms bridal style. She wished the time would stop right there. Why? Why would he go that far just for a show? People turned, watched, whispered. But he remained ice cold as he took her out of there and placed her in the car gently. He also grabbed a scarf and wrapped it around her neck. Vine's heart was beating furiously at that point, but their ride back home was silent. He asked if she needed a doctor and she rejected. That was all they talked about before things turned silent towards them again. Vine had so many questions to ask. She wanted to know if he meant his actions or not. Yet, as they laid on their bed, with their backs against each other, Vine, why did you marry me? Jungkook, who couldn't sleep already, knew he was spending yet another sleepless night. There was silence. Vine didn't expect an answer either. It was his kind of revenge. Jungkook would have respected her decision had she fallen out of love with time, or if she broke up with him, respect, giving him a genuine reason. But she didn't break up. She ripped his heart out of his chest and dug her nails in it till it bled out of its life. And now they were paying for their own sins, their own dirty games. The next morning, Jungkook was gone from not only bed but from the home as well. Before she woke up, he straight went over to the doctor she was visiting. Just because he didn't show himself attentive didn't mean he was not aware of her activities. He kept watch on everything, protecting her in his own way from the world, while ruining her with his own very two hands. That morning, Jungkook was completely unaware of how a simple visit to the doctor was going to shift his whole world on its axis. The Jungkook who entered the hospital and the Jungkook who left. The two of them were not the same. Apparently, the doctor turned out to be Wine's friend. She knew about Wine's life history, but even Jungkook was not aware of. The reason why she broke up with him. That she, Jungkook, my child. His voice broke as he fell over his knees, holding his hands out as if carrying an invisible baby. Jungkook, you killed my child. His chest burned, his heart shredding into pieces he didn't know it was capable of. Sorrow, fury, and agony was all he felt. In that moment, he could burn the world. The darkness that swelled around his eyes overtook any pain to ever exist. It was late at night when Jungkook returned home. Wine was awake on her bed waiting for him, but when he came back, he looked different. He seemed tensed, maybe angry, his eyes red and veins popping out of his neck and arms. Wine curled when he marched over to her and trapped her in between his arms in bed, his deadly eyes digging holes in her. Jungkook, did you not consider me worthy enough to know the truth and help you with it? Wine, what? Truth. He let out an angry exhale, not moving from his place, afraid he might do something to hurt her. All these hours he took to calm himself down a little would go to waste if he ends up doing something to her. Jungkook, I know everything. Tell me, did you not trust me enough? Did you not trust that I'll get us out of this situation? Situation which was caused 5 years ago. They were in love, love so sweet, word might end and they would still be smiling as long as they got each other. But then she got pregnant. She fainted one day and her father called over a doctor who informed them about her pregnancy. Her father lost his mind. He was too furious, he even took out his gun, threatened her to break up with Jungkook and abort her child. Otherwise, he was going to shoot her boyfriend. She got too scared, but didn't give up. She delayed it for as long as she could, tried to beg her father all she could, spent her days all alone in agony. The news of a baby, which was a blessing, turned into a most painful memory. Having to kill her child without even letting its father know killed a huge part of her inside. She knew her father was not bluffing. He would really shoot him. If Wine told Jungkook the truth, he was never going to accept it. He was going to fight back, and that would only put his life in danger. She didn't tell him the truth because she trusted him with her whole heart. He would die, but he'd never let her go. And that's why she decided to turn cold, rejected him coldly, hoping he would hate her and not put his life to risk. She did it all. She went through it all just to protect him. Jungkook back then was not this strong or powerful. But when he came back all those years ago, standing at the top of his wealth and business, her father shamelessly forced her to marry him as if nothing had happened in the past. Ryan, I didn't tell you because I trusted you. She yelled a little and pushed him away, her eyes tearing up. Not that he knew the truth, she could finally let it out. Ryan, you would have risked your life to save us. How do you expect me to not accept that? Jungkook, why didn't you tell me the truth now? Why? Because it was unfair. I made you go through so much all alone all these years. I couldn't just expect you to act like your pain was nothing as soon as you find the truth. It was unfair to you. I couldn't do that. I would rather accept all these cold glares than to ignore your pain. Jungkook sat back down and dug his face in his hands. How could things turn out like this? How was he supposed to fix it all when he ruined their lives with his own very two hands? Fine. Jungkook? She called him softly when his body shook under, unable to hold so many emotions. She slid near him and pulled him in his embrace, attempting to protect him from the world like she did before. She didn't let go, and slowly, and eventually, he started to break down, wrapped himself around her so tightly and broke down in tears. He lost himself. He lost his love. He lost his woman. And he lost his child. All that pain suddenly becoming too much for him. Jungkook, how did you do it all alone? How did you do that? He cried and cried. His tears continued to slip down his clothes. She never let him go, not even for once. That night he slept there in her arms, in that position, while crying, without even knowing. A night he didn't wake up from nightmare. He was there, asleep, when she woke up, for the first time since their wedding. Jungkook didn't touch her without her permission. He respected their distance. He was not going to force himself on her anymore. He was already drowning in guilt of making her go through such pain. When Vine stepped out of washroom in the evening, a towel in her hand wiping her wet hair, she found him on the bed, staring intently on the ground. Jungkook, I took too much time to overthink it, and I can't forgive your father. Forgive him of me. For money, he ruined his daughter and killed his grandchild. He stood up, helping her on the bed, and knelt down on the floor beside her. Jungkook, but he is your father. The lost child was yours. Say one word, and I won't even look at your father, let alone do anything about him. How could he let go of a child's murder over one word from her? It was the Jungkook she knew once, the Jungkook who would kill himself for her. She couldn't break him ever again. Wine, do as you please, just as your heart tells you to do. She caressed his cheek and he kissed the palm of her hand. Jungkook, there are so many things I need to apologize for, but I can't bring myself to offer such a small thing as an apology for such huge pain. I'm not going to force us into this relation either, expecting everything to turn back to normal. Jungkook, you were right. So many things happen, we can't ignore them and move on with life as if the pain didn't exist. Jungkook, but why? He looked up at her, holding her hand as he stayed there on his knees. Jungkook, let's try this again. From the very beginning, let's go on dates, hold hands, tell each other about life. Get excited over little things like kisses, cuddles, and hugs. Jungkook, let's talk about nothing, then talk about forever. And kids, let's have a cute little family. Let's move over this pain past. Will you give us another chance? He was right. They couldn't move on so quickly, but as long as they tried taking baby steps, one still loved this man, the way she did the very first day, and she would do anything to be able to with him all over again. Ryan nodded and Jungkook rested his head on her lap while she softly played with his hair. As the silence stretched between them, the two made a silent promise to never let a thing hurt each other ever again, to protect each other, and love till the very end.